First of all, every state is empowered to be able to make the decision on their own, and we completely and totally support that. What Donald Trump wants to do is try to nationalize the election. Translation, steal it, and we're not going to let it happen. We stopped them in terms of their gerrymandering efforts, where they were going to try to redraw congressional maps in red states throughout the nation, not expect Democrats to respond forcefully, and try to rig the midterms. They failed. We've stopped Donald Trump from being able to federalize the National Guard, which we believe was probably part of some toxic attempt to unleash troops on American cities all across the nation and intimidate people from voting. And we're going to stop him from nationalizing the election. This is going to be a free and fair election.
A case that's already inflaming partisan tensions is now widening into a broader fight over who controls American elections and whether the White House can legally push federal power into the voting process. The Guardian reports that House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries has accused President Donald Trump of trying to nationalize the 2026 midterm elections and says that, in practice, it translates to an effort to steal them. Jeffries made the remarks on CNN's State of the Union, insisting Democrats will not allow Washington to take over election administration, which in the U.S. is primarily run by states and localities. The dispute centers on comments Trump has made urging Republicans to take over and nationalize voting. ABC News reports Trump made those remarks while continuing to repeat false claims about the electoral process and suggested interesting things would emerge from Georgia after a court-ordered action involving ballots. The backlash has been immediate and not limited to House Democrats. In a clip carried by C-SPAN, Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer called the idea of nationalizing election administration outlandishly illegal, arguing the Constitution does not give the president that authority. Jeffries says Democrats are already fighting what they describe as related attempts to centralize power. The Guardian notes he claimed Democrats have successfully blocked efforts tied to federalizing the National Guard and have pushed back against Republican efforts to redraw congressional maps to their advantage. But the bigger anxiety for Democrats is not only rhetoric, it's the machinery of enforcement and litigation. The Guardian reports the Trump administration has been filing lawsuits against states, arguing voter rolls are not being properly maintained, while Republicans also push voting legislation like the SAVE Act. Jeffries and other Democrats argue that combination risks undermining trust in the vote before ballots are even cast. Those fears intensified after federal agents seized election materials in Fulton County, Georgia, a Democratic stronghold and a long-running target of Trump's election fraud claims. The Associated Press reports Fulton County officials asked a federal court to order the FBI to return hundreds of ballots and other election records taken in the seizure, escalating a legal conflict that now sits alongside Trump's calls to take over elections. The Washington Post reports the FBI removed more than 700 boxes of 2020 election records, including ballots and other election materials, as part of a federal criminal investigation. The Post says county officials warned the action could threaten election independence and deepen misinformation around the county's results, which Trump has repeatedly disputed without evidence. The Post also reports the episode took on a sharper political edge because Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard was present in what was described as an observer role, with Democrats raising concerns about the mixing of law enforcement actions and political messaging. This is the environment Jeffries is pointing to, not one single statement, but a pattern: high-profile claims about fraud, pressure campaigns around voter lists, and federal action touching election infrastructure. The AP reports election officials and Democrats are preparing for scenarios they say could amount to federal interference, while Republicans argue tougher enforcement is necessary to protect election integrity. There is also a critical legal reality. Even when Washington acts, elections remain deeply decentralized. States set rules for registration and voting, counties administer polling, and courts resolve disputes, meaning any attempt to nationalize elections would face immediate constitutional challenges and likely a barrage of litigation. What happens next may come down to three fronts. First, the courts. Fulton County's legal fight over the seizure and any future voter roll lawsuits could set precedents for how aggressively federal authorities can move into election administration. Second, Congress. Democrats say they will block legislation they believe is designed to nationalize election rules, while Republicans say uniform standards are needed. Schumer's comments signal a hard Senate Democratic line against such moves. Third, public trust. Even if no election is taken over, repeated claims of fraud, paired with high-profile seizures and investigations, can still shape how voters view legitimacy, especially in closely fought districts. For now, Democrats are treating Trump's language as a warning sign and a campaign strategy. Frame the midterms as a battle over democracy itself. Republicans counter that Democrats are trying to shield a flawed system from scrutiny. And voters are left watching a familiar American pattern, the election fight beginning well before Election Day. That's the story, and we'll bring you updates as the legal and political fallout develops.